On the way to their new home, a new bride named Elizabeth romanticizes the moment while her husband, Dr. Henry Kellenberg, drives. On their arrival, Henry carries Elizabeth through the doorway and shows her the luxurious house on top of a hill. He then introduces her to Oliver, his son, and Claire, who is the resident housekeeper. While looking around the place, Elizabeth realizes that Oliver is blind, but his disability does not limit his skills. That evening, the newlyweds share dinner in a grand but intimate setting before ending the night in their bedroom. The following day, Henry surprises Elizabeth with her new closet full of clothes that excites the new bride. He continues to show her all the rooms and features of the house to familiarize the place. After touring most of the rooms, a door by the hallway grabs Elizabeth's attention and she asks Henry what's inside. He explains that although the whole house and everything inside it are already hers, that particular room is off limits. He also makes her promise not to enter it no matter what. When she does, Henry kisses her in the hallway while Claire looks at them from a distance. In their bedroom, Henry informs Elizabeth that he won't be around tomorrow because of some work matters. She raises concerns about not wanting to be left in the house, but he insists that she stay and see this as an opportunity to be comfortable in her new home. She then wakes up to an empty bed and makes use of the pool because of her boredom. She explores the house and Claire asks her if she is hungry. Before Claire prepares a meal, Elizabeth asks her about Henry, but the housekeeper is not too keen on sharing any information about him. Elizabeth spends the rest of her day reading a book, sipping on some chocolate milkshake, trying on clothes, and wearing jewelry. To end the night, she takes a bath and sees the two housekeepers go home. Elizabeth has trouble sleeping and curiosity soon gets the best of her. She breaks Henry's only rule and goes toward the forbidden room. The room seems like a laboratory where she sees 6 metal drawers with vital signs monitors displayed on each one. She is too interested in what lies behind the drawer, so she presses a button that opens it. To her surprise, the drawers are cryogenic pods that contain bodies. Horror grabs her throat when she sees a clone of herself lying unconscious and preserved. Terrified by the sight of this, she runs back to the bedroom to try and calm herself down and tries to contact anyone, but the signal is down, causing her to panic more. Unknowingly, Elizabeth falls asleep and wakes up the next day, still not over the fact that she saw a clone of herself. That day, Henry has returned home, playing the piano for her while looking at him with suspicion. Because of this, she feels uncomfortable around him, but she acts as if nothing happened to make herself safe. Henry notices her meek behavior, and he senses that Elizabeth has seen what is inside the forbidden room, calling her a good liar. However, she denies his subtle accusations, so he suggests that they send the housekeepers home so that they could spend the day alone. Both of them have an intimate moment together, but Elizabeth has lost faith in her husband, knowing that she is in great danger. In the middle of the night, Henry gets out of bed, and so does Elizabeth. She looks down at the basement where the forbidden room is, but Henry comes from behind her, saying, "Elizabeth, my pet." In a sinister way, he holds his machete while revealing that he is aware of her trespassing into the room, which frightens her so much. She runs away from him in an attempt to escape, but the doors are entirely locked, making her hide in the wine cellar. During that nerve-wracking night, Henry decides to just wait for her in the living room, and Elizabeth makes her way upstairs, thinking that the coast is clear. From the fireplace, she grabs an iron poker as her only tool of self-defense. She climbs up the stairs, where Henry grabs her foot from below, causing her to fall. While she lays on the floor, he mercilessly kills her with the machete, abruptly ending her life and their marriage all at once. To hide the evidence, Claire and Oliver help him dispose of Elizabeth's body in the garden. Oddly enough, the three seem pretty experienced in doing it, as if killing and burying a person is not new to their nature. After the body's disposal, the three of them eat breakfast together, but this time, Henry is not treated as the boss but rather an accomplice. On the same day, Logan, a detective who also happens to be Henry's friend, visits him and shares a drink. Logan asks about Elizabeth, but Henry brushes the topic off by steering the conversation toward Logan's work life. Henry gives him advice on dealing with the strain of employment to steer the topic away from him altogether. In Claire's separate quarter, Oliver visits and gives her flowers, which she refuses to accept, saying that he should stop being nice to her. He asks why she still serves Henry despite being unhappy, but she says they have unfinished business. Oliver accuses her of being in love with Henry, but she just calls him immature. To get rid of him, she accepts the flowers hesitantly. Weeks later, another Elizabeth is on the way home, just as what happened to the one before. It is complete déjà vu. Again, he carries her to the home entrance, tours her around, and gives her gifts for their marriage. The new Elizabeth also asks Henry about the forbidden room, and he gives his warning speech once again, to which she agrees to abide. Again, Henry gets to experience their honeymoon, just with another version of his bride. That night, he informs her that he will leave in the morning, just as he did last time. Now alone in the house, she entertains herself by looking at the paintings in the art gallery and dressing up just for fun. However, she runs out of things to do, so she decides to sneak into the forbidden room she promised not to enter. Inside the lab, she opens the drawer and sees her clone, which frightens her enough to run away. Unlike the last time, the clone opens her eyes and gets up after being preserved for a long time. She seems confused about her whereabouts and identity, so she blankly walks around the home undressed. Disturbingly, she enters the bedroom where Elizabeth has fallen asleep and touches her body as if she is someone familiar. Elizabeth wakes up to Henry greeting her good morning before informing her that he gave Claire a day off, leaving the both of them in the house. In the bathroom, she acts frantically because of her puzzled thoughts about her marriage, the room, and her safety. Without consent, Henry enters the bathroom and proceeds to wet a towel while telling Elizabeth that he is aware of her entering the room. He uses the towel to choke her, but she is able to fight back and be free from him. She hurriedly runs downstairs to the front door, but it is ineffective since the system is completely locked. Because of this, she grabs a knife from the kitchen while Henry prepares halothane to knock her unconscious. The trembling Elizabeth stays in the kitchen when Henry calmly approaches the piano to play some music but leaves just as the recorder continues the musical piece. Thinking that Henry is preoccupied with playing, she gets up, allowing him to come from behind and put the towel against her face. Elizabeth twitches around because of the chemical's contents, and after acting like she is unconscious, she stabs Henry on the back of his neck. The couple lies beside each other, where moments later, Elizabeth regains her strength and sees her husband in a pool of blood. She tries to unlock the door by using his fingerprints, but all are invalid, leaving her no choice but to clean the space before Oliver and Claire find out. She drags the body to the elevator after deciding to clean herself up, covering any evidence of the event that took place. Excessively tired, Elizabeth falls asleep in the living room and is woken up by the sound of a ringing phone. She immediately gets up to contact emergency services, saying that she is locked inside the house, with no means of opening it. Seeing Oliver and Claire on the way to the house, she drops the call to avoid any suspicions from the two. Upon their entrance, Elizabeth greets them, which makes them completely aback, seeing her still alive. Claire realizes that something is amiss after hearing that Henry is upstairs because he is not feeling well. Henry never stays upstairs, leaving Elizabeth unsupervised, especially that her clones are killed by him for not long. Claire could not wrap her head around the fact that something terrible has happened to Henry, so she comes to the kitchen and experiences a heart attack. Emergency services arrive at the home, and Elizabeth sees this as a perfect opportunity to escape or ask for help. However, Oliver warns her that the police will eventually find out about Henry's murder. She tells him that she killed her husband out of self-defense, and Oliver assures her that everything will be fine as long as she listens to him. Both of them team up to dispose of his body in the backyard secretly. Oliver reveals that Elizabeth is a product of biogenesis, an experiment led by Henry and Claire, who are both doctors. They talk about the contents of the Forbidden Room, where 6 identical genetic copies or clones are present. According to Oliver, she is the 5th clone of the Elizabeth Harvest Project. Elizabeth cannot comprehend anything and just breaks into tears. Moments later, Detective Logan makes his way to the house for another regular visit, which means that they should prepare themselves to brush off any suspicions. Logan is surprised that Elizabeth is the one welcoming him, as Henry never misses a meeting with him. Out of nowhere, Logan asks Elizabeth if she contacted emergency services because the station informs him that a Mrs. Kellenberg called to get some help. Oliver saves her by saying that the emergency was actually for Claire, who is now hospitalized. Unconvinced, Logan asks more about the situation, but Oliver comes from behind with a rifle and shoots the helpless detective. Despite his loss of sight, his aim is exceptional. He assures Elizabeth that she does not feel bad about Logan because he stopped one of the clones to escape death, bringing her back to the house for Henry to kill. He also admits that Henry is only motivated by killing the clones after reliving the honeymoon phases. As he gives her more information about the experiment, Elizabeth becomes more frantic because of her identity crisis, but they have to store the body in the backyard once again. There, Oliver advises her to pack her bags, run away as far as possible, and bring a significant amount of money with her. Elizabeth proceeds to pack her bags. While gathering her things, Oliver enters to ask her if she could read Claire's journal to him. Feeling sorry for his inability to read, she opens the journal, but he locks her inside the closet. Out of agitation, she screams after being tricked by a blind boy. Feeling defeated, she decides to read the journal to pass the time. Claire's story starts 5 years ago, on the day she was invited by Henry to take part in his study. He found Claire's work about neurogeneration very intriguing, but the rest of the medical field are against their views on this study. The journal entries reveal that the real Elizabeth, who was Henry's wife, died of a rare medical condition after giving birth to Oliver. Unable to deal with her passing, Henry decided to create and harvest clones of Elizabeth and hired Claire to help him perfect the process by cracking the code. After 3 years of endless tests, she got the formula, and they started to prepare the body for completion. To instill memories in her, Henry recorded messages and played music for the subjects every night to let information be absorbed in their minds. The initial test attempts were abortive because one of the clones appeared disoriented and mentally incapacitated. After discovering the Forbidden Room, she runs away and manages to step foot outside the house, but Logan brings her back. In the present, Oliver brings supper for Elizabeth, so she knocks him to the ground after he opens the door. She tries to extract the front door code, where Oliver tells her a combination of numbers after being tied. As she proceeds to the front door, she realizes that the code is invalid and goes back to Oliver to confront him, but he has escaped. Fearfully, she grabs a knife before going to the lab, where she sees Oliver tending to one of the clones. According to him, he refuses to let Elizabeth go if she does not disclose the contents of the journal and informs him how much Claire knows about the Elizabeth Harvest Project. While Elizabeth looks at her clone intently, Oliver tranquilizes her, and she gets unconscious as a result. Now a prisoner of Oliver, Elizabeth is tied to a metal chain in their bedroom, strictly kept inside. No matter how much she tries to be free from it, her strength is not enough to unchain herself. She continues to read the journal and finds out that years ago, the cloned Elizabeth who Logan returned has died because of suffocation. Henry claims that he has no idea why, but Claire's suspicions are already present. Despite this, she and Henry shared a short-lived affair. While she is busy reading, Oliver enters the room to give her food and asks her if Claire has disclosed any information about him in the journal, but Elizabeth says that Claire did not write about him at all. When she tells Oliver this, he reveals that Henry blinded him out of jealousy during his childhood because he did not like Oliver's growing friendship with one of the clones as a child, and after Oliver confronted him of molesting one of the clones. Henry attacked Oliver in his sleep but claimed that it was because of an electrical fire that made him blind. In the journal, Claire writes that she did not find any birth records of the true Elizabeth, putting her under the impression that Oliver is not their son but rather a person made up by Henry. She suspects that Oliver is a younger clone of Henry, the revelation of which Claire asked Henry about, and he did not deny it. Finding out about this, Elizabeth grows more afraid for her life. While she sleeps, Oliver comes up to her, holding a knife against her neck, desperately asking if Claire has written anything about him. The nervous Elizabeth tells him about Claire's suspicion, but she assures Oliver that he is not Henry because he can still change his ways. She then tries seducing him in hopes of letting his guards down, which she succeeds at, making him say the code to unlock the door. After hitting him repeatedly, the sixth Elizabeth appears holding a rifle and points it at the fifth Elizabeth. Confused about what is happening, she experiences a dilemma on who to believe. She instructs Elizabeth to fall to the ground. She spots the scissors and uses them to stab Oliver and shield herself with his body. Disoriented, the new clone shoots and kills Oliver, which also wounds Elizabeth, but she still makes her way outside in desperation to escape. Upon her exit, she is fatally wounded by the new clone, but before she dies, she tells the clone to read Claire's journal. The new Elizabeth reads Claire's journal, which tells how Henry and Claire met and details their work together on the Elizabeth Harvest project. She also finds out that Claire discovered that Henry simply wanted to relive his honeymoon night with each new cloned Elizabeth before brutally killing them. This horrified Claire so much, but she still chose to take his side. In the present, Claire has recovered from her heart attack and returns to the house where the final Elizabeth awaits her entrance. She welcomes Claire, hands her the journal, and tells her to put her studies to better use after saying that she has earned the luxurious home. Elizabeth makes her way outside, willing to start a life of her own independently.